Welcome to the 6th episode of the BraaiBucks Podcast. I am Rian Knutse and this is my co-host Pieter de Villiers. And we started this podcast to provide free financial education to all South Africans. Today we will talk about financial objectives and why is it important to set short to long-term objectives. Welcome, Pieter.
Thank you, Rian. Yeah, it's so nice to finally have some warm weather in Cape Town. It's just been rain and storms the whole time, so yeah. The mood is also a bit better now that we've seen some sun. Yeah. We look a bit different this time because we decided to ditch the suits because kind of the whole purpose behind BraaiBucks is to stand at the braai with your mates and talk about finances. So
exactly. Feel a bit more free, feel a bit more relaxed today.
Yeah.
That's good.
Awesome. Yeah, so how's things going on your side? How's the long weekend?
Yeah, it is good. It was good. Like I said just before we started the episode, actually, when you have a small child and it's raining outside, you really start to almost get to know all of the YouTube stars for children. So Jeffrey Linky and Benzi has been on my screen a lot this weekend. And, the songs also, because it's so repetitive and, for a child, it's simple to remember. So my wife and I also catch each other and it's like singing the songs when it's not even on the TV anymore. So no, but a good weekend after all. We also had a little bit of a DIY project. So my wife and I have this hobby every time. If there's a long weekend and we don't have anything else, we try and keep ourselves busy with improving our home.
Awesome. Yeah, watch the space. The background may change soon if you're watching this. We also have this available on audio podcast now. Rion is running the audio side, so if you want to listen to our episodes, it's also available on
Apple Podcast, YouTube Podcast. It's also on Spotify. So whichever podcast channel you do prefer, you should be able to find us there.
Yeah, awesome. So let's kick it right into today's topic. Why do we put financial goals in place? So this is typically something that we all believe that, it's easy. I've got goals in life and I really, Peter, why are you making a whole episode about this? But it's really more understanding why it's important to have financial goals and to be intentional. How do we actually set them and how do we keep ourselves accountable to achieving goals? Because it's always like this, you get people at the beginning of the year, you've got your nice Christmas holiday and you've had your New Year's dinner and got pumped for the new year. It's like a new year, new me. I'm going to go running every day. I'm going to eat healthy. I'm going to make millions. I'm just going to be this ultimate beast. And then 2 weeks into the year, it's just like, no, everything stopped happening. First time it rains, you stop running. You kind of try to follow a diet for a couple of weeks and then you just give up because it sucks. Mm-hmm. And then next thing you know, you have not reached your goals and you're back to square one. And then the next day you kind of rinse and repeat. So it's really like trying to break that cycle and to discuss, first of all, what do we talk about when we talk about financial goals and what are the action steps to follow? And also giving some examples of how can we take goals and break them into small steps that's easily attainable so that we reach the goal at the end of the period, whether that's a short, medium, or long term. So that is kind of just understanding why we want to put financial goals in place, because we all have goals in life, ambitions, and stuff that we want to achieve. So it's identifying those things and then creating a strategic plan in place, how we're going to achieve them step by step.
Yes, agreed. So I think what you're touching on there is it really provides that clarity and direction of where you want to go. I think if you, like you said, in the beginning of the year, normally we all do that and say, listen, this is what I want to do. But the important part of that is also to put in your plan of action in there. So yes, you might want to say, listen, I want to be a millionaire and have a six-pack by the end of this year. Then you need to put tangible steps in there to give you direction of how you'll get there, because there's a big vision. But what is the small incremental steps and decisions I need to make on a daily basis to get there?
Yeah, exactly. Right, so let's get into the practical side of things on how to set good financial goals. Now, there's a short acronym that you're probably familiar with called SMART, and that stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Now, it's a bit easier to remember if you kind of connect it to a specific acronym. So let's start with the first one, specific. We need to make our goals specific. So if you want to buy a car, you need to really not only say, I want to buy a car. You need to think about what type of car, what model, new, used, what is the purpose? Do you want to buy a car for the functionality of it, to drive around in town, or do you want to buy one to go off-road? What is the needs of your lifestyle and your family? Are you a single person that just needs a small car, or are you a bigger family and you want security? So it's really writing down all your needs and then deciding, okay, cool, I've decided on the type of model, and now I need to decide buy new or used. And now you measure up the different pricing. Now you think, okay, I need finance, so maybe I need to put down a deposit. What is that deposit? How are you going to save for that? How long will that take you? And when are you going to buy the car? So instead of just go window shopping around and then getting swayed by a salesperson that you need to buy today because it's special of the year and it's going to disappear tomorrow, really sit down and think, okay, but what is the timeline? I want to buy this car. This is what it's going to cost me. This is the deposit I need to save. This is how I'm going to get there by saving this amount per month. And this is how many months it will take me to get that car. So that is kind of the thought process that you need to follow. So starting off with being very specific, this is what I want.
Yeah, I think in that is you need to be specific just because of to get your mind clear as well and to get that focus of what you want. I think if you set an objective that is too vague, you will almost, don't really know what direction you want to move in. So if your objective is just to, have a six-pack at the end of the year, it's almost like you don't even know how to get there. Do you need to actually go onto a very extreme diet because you need to lose 50 kilograms to be, have a six-pack, or is it something that you can actually achieve in a very short period of time? I don't know where everyone's fitness level are, but it's being that specific in terms of, in your mind, you must be very, very clear of what is it that I want. And then to go into the second one, which is measurable, and that's for me always putting a rand amount against it if it's a financial objective. So like you said, if you want a car, be very specific what type of car, used or second-hand or new. And then to say, I need to at least put down a 10% deposit. And okay, the car will cost me a R500,000, so my deposit needs to be at least 50,000 Rand. Then okay, I need to save 50,000 Rand before I can even think about going and looking at a car at a dealership.
Yeah, and that brings us into the third one, achievable. Now, it doesn't make sense you want to buy R1 million worth of car if you are unemployed. It's not realistic. We need to bring it into what makes sense to you. Maybe you want that expensive car, but then you know that you have to save for a longer period, which kind of takes us to the fifth one, time bound. We have to have a deadline of when are we going to meet this, and also a timeline of how can we achieve this. So a goal is only as good, and the same with a financial plan, if you can follow through with it. So don't make unrealistic goals. Oftentimes, again, new year, new me, six-pack, millionaire, gonna be rich, I'm gonna be famous. Those goals are way too big. You really have to dumb them down and say, okay, maybe in 5 years I can get to 1 million, but what do I need to do per year, per month, per week, per day to get that? And you kind of reverse engineer from there, but making it realistic within your kind of ability and constraints that you have.
Yeah, and just to use an example of that, so you need to have a deadline to really work towards. So even in long-term objectives, like, for example, saving for retirement, you still want to break it down into smaller chunks in knowing, listen, to achieve that big goal in 30 years' time, I need to save this amount every month from now. So it is looking at what is the timeline, how can I measure it, and then how can I make it achievable for myself, and how does it actually fit into my budget? So again, using that example of I need to save 50,000 Rand for a car deposit, if I know, listen, I want to do it in a year's time, then I will then work it out in terms of I need to save X amount of Rand on my budget every month to get to that 50,000 Rand.
Yeah, exactly. And the last part of that kind of acronym, relevant, you also need to make sure that your goals actually align with your values and your objectives, because, and we'll kind of dig into this a bit more later in the episode, but your goals should align with what's important to you and what's valuable to you. If you don't, for example, if you value fitness then it doesn't really make sense having a goal of I want to eat 100 Big Macs. I want to kind of set a world record of eating the most burgers. I mean, that's silly. It's stupid. So you need to make sure that it also aligns with your values, because your value system is very powerful driving force for building habits. And if the goal is misaligned to what you believe and what you value, then that misalignment will never really realize, and the goal will just be dropped. So it's also doing a bit of introspection, which is a good exercise in the beginning of the year. Think about, listen, this is what I want to achieve in life, and this is why. I want to be a millionaire. Why? Because maybe I want to be philanthropic. I want to pursue philanthropy. I want to give back. Okay, so that's a strong driving force. So now when you start, breaking it down into smaller things of I need to work harder, maybe build a business, and times get tough, which it will, the actual driving force of I want to give back is going to carry you through, as opposed to just the superficial I want money.
Exactly. So just to add on to that, it really needs to be relevant to yourself, because ultimately you'll have, let's say, for example, 5 financial objectives. And to really reach those objectives, you will need to sacrifice something.
Yeah.
So if you are not willing to sacrifice, you won't be able to meet that objective. And if that objective is not really something that you value in your own personal life, you won't do the sacrifice of something else. So again, using your example of fitness, if you want to have a six-pack at the end of the year, you know that you need to eat well, you need to train constantly. So what you will need to sacrifice is time, time to prep the right meals, time to go to the gym. And if you're not willing to do that sacrifice, then you won't get there.
Exactly.
So you really need to have that value within yourself to drive you towards that objective.
Yeah. Case in point, I haven't made this public yet, and I'm a bit scared
till
to.
Now.
So I'm going to try and do the Comrades next year. It's one of the big goals that I've put, probably one of the biggest I've actually done. So I'm not a runner. I've not run, I'm not an athlete. I barely ran at school, just when I had to. So it's not something within my lane, but I want to do it not only to prove to myself that I can, but also because my wife loves running, and she did it this year, and it just seemed like this massive achievement, and it's an opportunity for me to spend more time with her. So now if I know, okay, next year June I have to run 86 Ks starting from 0, I can't just pitch up and run. I'll injure myself and I'll probably die. So I need to now reverse engineer and say, okay, I've got, 52 weeks. I need to build up to that. I need to start getting the kilometers on the legs. I need to get used to the endurance of it. I need to build up fitness. I need to work on my technique. I need to eat right. And that brings us back to weekly goals. Okay, this week I need to run 30 kilometers. Now I need to think, which days am I going to run? We had this conversation a bit earlier. And then that means on a Saturday morning when it's raining and it's cold and it's miserable, you have to get your ass up and go run. Because exactly. You know that this is the goal next year. It's far away, but I have to do this today. Otherwise, I'm not going to reach that. And exactly. the value behind that, the driving force, is because this is something that my wife and I want to do together. So that's strong enough to get me out of bed. Otherwise, I won't be motivated. Yeah. And also, I paid for the entry, so that's a big one for me as well. As soon as I pay for something, I know I need to.
As soon as there's money on the spell, you need to follow through.
Now.
Yeah. So I think that almost just embodies everything that we're trying to say. You need to really be specific on what your goal is, and that is to run Comrades. I feel like you need to be even more specific in time, in giving the time as well. But you don't have to share it on this platform.
11:59:59. If I can be the last one over the line, I'll be happy.
So your goal is to be that last guy that needs to do the interview on the TV.
They also get a prize. So I'm not going to be the first, definitely not. So, but the only way I'll get a prize if I'm the last. So if I'm not the last, then at least I still made it.
And you know exactly what's measurable, and you know the deadline as well. Yeah. And then you can break it down into achievable chunks on a weekly basis.
And build from there onwards.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. I think just on that as well, for me, that's worked quite well, is the approach to take to financial objectives. And for me, to start off with, and I think if we probably mentioned it in one of our previous episodes as well, but money should be the tool to allow you to do what you really want in life. It shouldn't be the thing keeping you back, or I really want to do this in my life, but money is always in the way. So for me, you need to use the tool effectively, and the only way that you can do that is if you know what you want in life.
Yeah.
So for me, the important first step is almost, let's forget about finance for 1 second. Let's do almost like a lifestyle audit and really get to what are my values driving me in my life. And for me, that a good exercise is something that was introduced to me by a friend, Marco, in the family conference that he called it. So way back when we were still in a cell with him, he introduced that to us. And what it is, it's really saying, listen, if you are married or if you're alone, it doesn't really matter. But if you are married, go and take a whole weekend and just spend, say, we're not going to do anything, we're not going to watch TV, except if we're taking a break, and we're going to really focus on our lives in these 2 days. And what you do is you systematically go through the important things of your life. So stuff like, for example, your spiritual life. So if you are a Christian like us, you need to know, okay, the thing that we want to achieve is we want to be involved in the church, and we want to be part of the church. We want to give to the church. So that immediately says, okay, well, that is a value that's driving us. And it's something that in the back of our minds, let's keep it in the back pocket because it might have a financial impact. Then you need to go into what is your career progression or goals on that. And that is also very important, because you might be in a position where you feel that, I'm in a position in my career that I don't actually want to continue where I'm at. I want to make a change. So that will maybe mean that you need to educate or gain a new skill or something like that. So I think a career is a very important one as well. Then you also need to look at the third category, which is your family. So family is obviously immediate. So if you're married, it's your wife and your kids, if you have kids. But then it's also a bit further. So how do you want to have a relationship with your mother and your father, with your in-laws? And if they don't live in the same city, will you make the effort to travel? And then again, if you are saying yes, then you need to think, okay, it will have a financial impact, so maybe we need to save for something like that. The fourth one is personal. So what do I want for me as a person? What growth projection do I see myself in? Again, do I see myself going through a development journey? So do I want to upskill in something? Do I want to go further in my studies or anything like that? So that's really personal. And then we go into health and fitness. And health and fitness is also, I feel like, should be in everyone's mind if you want to be a holistic person. So you need to think of what is your financial health and fitness goals. So for you, for example, it's comrades. For me, it will not be.
Next year.
But it is maybe just to, for example, stay within a weight bracket of 85 to 87 kilograms, which is difficult. And then lastly is also something which is quite important, but that is then social. So you need to think of your friendship groups, how you will socialize. Will you say yes to everything every time someone invites you out to a braai or invite you out to dinner? Because all of that will have an impact on you ultimately. Now, when you've set this lifestyle audit, or okay, this is where I want to head to, then you almost immediately know, okay, well, these are the ones that I need to, will have a financial impact on my life. And then you need to start prioritizing. Okay, so my social life will cost me money. My spiritual life will cost money. My career might cost me money, or it might drive me to make more money. My choices that I've made for myself and for my family might cost me money. So now you need to start putting these things into your budget and thinking, okay, what do I prioritize? So maybe saving for my kids' education is more important for me than to say yes to every social occasion, etc., etc. So this is how you almost get to what is valuable to me as Rian Knudse and as Pieter, and then you start looking at your financial perspective. And the whole thing around that is, let's use our money as a tool to live the life that I want to live for myself, based on my values.
Exactly. That's spot on. I think the way that we've creatively created is a core value system that we all were given, and all the decisions we make are sprouted from those core values. And it's good to sit down and reflect what those are, and always go back to, if you need to make a difficult decision and to prioritize your goals, go back to what is valuable to you. In case you mentioned am I going to save for my child's education? That's important because I want to give my child opportunities that I never had. That means quantifying how much I need to put away per month to make sure child goes to uni. And that then shows you in your budget, well, if I want to do this, I can't go out to friends every weekend because I'll sacrifice that because I want to make this achievable. So It's really understanding and doing that introspection of who you are. And I like what you said, that money is not everything, but it's a tool that we use to live the life that we want with the people we want. So we use money, we use it as a little toolkit, an arsenal of tools that we can buy the type of lifestyle that you want. And that really aligns, because you might find that you have a lot of goals. I have stuff that I want to achieve, but not all of them I'm not able to do all of them at once. So I need to go and sit down and prioritize and see, okay, well, I'll do these 3 first. Once I'm done with that, maybe I'm late in my life, I can do the other 3 and be becoming more conscious of that. And you also need to think about, obviously we spend a lot of time on social media and we see all, people achieving big things, and it's always on the flashy on social media. People never post the bad stuff. They always, it looks like, yeah, I'm behind. But forget about everyone. Forget what society tries to expect from you. Forget about your friends that are living the high life and the flashy cars. You are running your own race. Again, me going for a jog on a Saturday with a club, if I'm last, then I'm last, but at least I finished. And if I'm last at Comrades, I'm last, but I finished. So that's something that I'm learning now is you're running your own race at your own pace that you are comfortable with. And you're keeping true to yourself because well, this is the end goal. And I'm not here where the rest are yet because they've been doing it for years. I'm new to this. So kind of block out that and really become clear on what is important for you, and you'll do whatever it takes. And the thing is, if you say yes to something, you say no to 3 other things. So you need to go and decide, what am I saying no to? What am I saying yes to? And keep with that, because that is what's going to help you get to that point.
Exactly. And you only see the success on social media,
Yeah,
right? You don't see the sacrifice behind the scenes. So you might see all of these wonderful vacation photos of someone that's overseas again, but you don't see, listen, I've, like, for the other 51 weeks of the year, I'm at home saving everything I can to enjoy that vacation. So you only see that little small piece, but you don't see the sacrifice. So just remember that. And I like that what you said. You need to run your own race.
Yeah.
You are in this world on your own and with your family. So make the best decisions for yourself.
And now, thinking about all of these things in your thoughts, and it's all over the place. So write them down. Journaling is a very great exercise to really make sense of what's going in your mind. And oftentimes we get so overwhelmed because we've got our mind running all over the place. But if you write them down and you really put them in front and you start crossing out, and it's very valuable to do that. It's an actual proven study that will help you to realize your goals. If you it there on the fridge every day and you look at it, you see it. Okay, this is why I'm doing this every day. I wake up because I want to achieve that. It's another sense that you kind of activate.
Yes.
And if all else fails, get an accountability partner. Because if, again, I now said, flipping, I'm going to do Comrades on the internet, so now it's out there. I need to do it unless I get an injury and I can't. But if not, if everything goes well, that is now
that's what you'll do in July next year.
Yeah, I've kind of put it, in the universe. So
and
now I'm accountable.
It's your wife is keeping you accountable. I will keep you accountable, and everyone that's on YouTube will keep you accountable.
Dug my hole now.
Yeah,
and it's good to have someone to go along with you. So if you can find someone that's aligned with the same goal, my wife and I, we both said we're going to do Comrades, and so I have some family members that's going to try. So it's nice having that group of support that, when times get tough and you don't want to wake up early to go running, or maybe you get an injury and you want to give up, you've got the people that pick you up and say, let's go, we can do it. And if that doesn't work, then you need to kind of set some form of punishment. That's kind of the flip side. I don't necessarily recommend this, but also a different way to approach it is I can say, I'm going to run Comrades, and if I don't run Comrades next year, then I need to I need to give a paycheck or I need to give money to a society that I don't support, for example. Something that will really sting, that it's so painful that you would rather just get the goal done as opposed to receiving the punishment. And that's also a very strong driving force.
Agreed. So I think in the lifestyle order that I spoke about as well, what my wife and I found was very, very nice that worked for us is in each of these steps, we actually put down our goals in each one of those ones. So spiritual, career, family, personal, health and fitness, and social. And what we found is we've been doing it for a few years now. If you start looking back and see, okay, well, we've actually made so much progress in our personal lives because we said actively and purposefully, this is what we want to achieve in this area of our life. And we've written it down so that we can actually go back and say, wow, I actually achieved something. It wasn't just a thought and then you forget about it in 2 years' time. So you can see your progress as well, which is very nice. On the point that you made about accountability, I think finance is personal. So if you don't have a wife or a husband you can share your actual rands and cents with, at least tell them what you, or your close family, what you want to do, or your friends, for example, the car that we've been talking about the whole time. So you can say, for example, to your friends, listen, I really want to buy this car and I want to pay a 10% deposit in the next 6 months, and then that will also almost actively drive you into that accountability. So I think from a finance perspective, you don't have to share every little detail, but you can still get that accountability from just speaking your mind in terms of what you want to achieve.
Yeah, I think it's like it's a powerful chemical reaction in your own head that goes off because now you've thought about it. That's one sense. You've written it down. You see it. Now you verbalize it. Now it's like involving many different things, and every time it's like a step up. And then once you put it out there, like, okay, sure, this is now reality. Now I need to do it, and I've actually made a kind of a commitment to achieving this. So I need to keep myself accountable. So yeah, that's definitely.
Yeah. So now we've looked at how to set your financial objectives. So the SMART methodology. So you need to follow that acronym. How to almost approach it from a personal life perspective. But just bringing it back to finance, Peter, how do we get started with our financial objectives?
Yeah, so I think it's important to again do that introspection. What do we want to achieve, and then look at our value system, write down the goals, and then start prioritizing them. So if you are very new to this, you might not know. But what are these guys talking about? What types of financial goals do we actually put ourselves? So to bring it just back to finance, start with the basics. And we're always going to hammer on this because it really is that simple to get started. You need to create and stick to a budget. So that means you need to sit down, go through your bank statements, write down what you've spent on different categories, categorize it, do it for a couple of months, get the average, get a sense of what you actually pay for, and then create a budget based off that and keep yourself accountable. If you know you're overspending on groceries, which we often do, we need to sit down every month and say, okay, we overspent here. We said we wanted to do this. We want to go on holiday, but now we need to cut down on the sweeties because then we can actually have fun. So start with a budget.
Yeah, so it's starting with a budget, but the important part for me is sticking with it.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the more difficult part in the budgeting life cycle. But it's also doing that on a continuous basis and then tracking it and asking the question of, okay, I'm not sticking to my food budget. Why is that? So maybe it is just you didn't take food inflation into account and it's just more expensive and
sure.
You can't really cut back anymore. So then your budget is unrealistic and you need to update.
Yeah.
Right. But I think what you was also getting to is for financial objectives, start at the basics. So look at the financial freedom pyramid that we spoke about in 2 episodes ago and start with that foundational layer. So create a budget, look at setting up an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months, then getting out of bad debt and staying out of that. So I think that is always as a foundation, very good financial objectives to have for anyone.
Yeah, and say spending less than you earn, not a fall for the lifestyle inflation. And, once you've kind of done that, if we say get out of debt, what does that mean? It actually goes right down, where do I have debt? I've got these 4 credit cards, these 2 personal loans. So write down the outstanding amounts, write down the interest rates, the minimum monthly repayment, and create a plan, a debt repayment plan, which we will cover in a future episode, of really like, how am I going to tackle this and what other sacrifices do I need to make? Because now I've got myself into this, I need to get myself out. It will mean I'll need to sacrifice somewhere else. So quantify. I need to save an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months. Okay, what does that mean? Go do your budget, go look at your expenses. What is my monthly expenses, my essentials? Multiply that by 3 to 6. That will give you a number. And then you decide, okay, well, if I divide this by 12, within a year I'll get there. Is it possible for me to put that away? And saving for retirement, what does that mean? You know, what does retirement mean? What is that amount? And some of these calculations are more difficult than others. But the purpose is to start with the basics. And as you graduate into the next level and the next level, you'll also become more equipped to manage money well. But it starts with quantifying those goals and making a commitment and having a plan that you can follow realistically, that aligns with your values, and that is actually attainable within your scope of resources.
Yeah. So I think we discussed now almost your foundational finance objectives that you can have. I think, I would implore everyone as well is don't get into this mindset of I just need to save what I have and get to all of these objectives. I would implore everyone to almost have that growth mindset as well. So yes, you might find yourself in a specific situation, but for me, very good goals is actually to think of how can I increase my income? By how much do I want to increase my income this year? Do I need to start a side hustle? So it's almost having that growth mindset as well, and not just in terms of saving what I already make.
Yeah. It's if you see that you've got all these goals and you look at your budget and you're like, geez, I don't really know where I can cut more. Then the flip side is you need to earn more. So how can I earn more so that I can fund my goals? So we've touched on a couple of examples, but it's always good to kind of break them down into 3 kind of categories: your short-term, medium, and long-term goals. So Rion, what would we consider short-term goals? What is the kind of time frame, and what examples do you think can we include in that?
Yeah, so short-term goals are really anything that is from 0 months to 12 months. So it's within a year. So it's really something, it's not too big. So for me, those type of goals is something like I want to save for my December holiday. So I don't want to pay anything on my credit card. It's December holiday. I want to pay my accommodation and all my spending must be covered. Or something like I need to save for my child's stationery for next year. Or I need to save for my child's uniform. Because I have a boy and literally every season he needs to get a new wardrobe. So when it's summer again, we'll need to literally buy a new wardrobe for summer because he's grown that much. So it's something like that, and saying, okay, well, I know now every half year for my boy that's growing up, I'll need to buy a new wardrobe. So let's save a bit for that, or let's make provision for that. So those are examples of short-term goals. But there's so many that you can think of: buying a couch, or buying a household appliance, or buying an engagement ring, as an example. So it's anything that, that might be longer than a year, but
3 years salary. What did it say?
Well, I thought it was 3 months. Isn't it 3 months? I think it's 3 months.
It's an office reference. If you didn't understand the joke, then you're not welcome. No, I'm joking. So it's short-term goals, and what I like about saving for short-term, like you said, the December holidays, being intentional. Like, we want to go here. That is what we want to do. This is what it will cost us. It's 12 months away. Now let's start saving, because now you remove that instant gratification, like, I want to go on this holiday now. You've planned ahead, you've thought about it, you've put it into like a savings bucket. And what helps is to create little savings accounts. And we'll also go a bit deeper into this in another episode of, automating these things. You've quantified, you want to spend this amount at the end of the month. This is the amount you need to save for that goal. And you have a debit order that goes off. Salary comes in, debit order goes off. You spend the rest. So that you automate this process, because it's very difficult after you've spent everything to save at the end. So short-term savings and long-term savings, the automation is important. Before we can do that, we need to quantify what do we actually save for.
Yeah. I think the medium term is going up until, longer than a year, up to 5 years, I would say, is probably like medium term. So it's stuff that you'll need to save for a longer period of time. So So if you, for example, someone that needs to save for a house deposit, so you really want to buy your own home, then that is something that you'll look at a medium term. For me, that's also quite a good medium term, but actually medium to long term is to max out your tax-free savings account in South Africa. So we know the limit is 36,000 Rand a year, but try and almost do it over a medium or to long term. So try and get to that limit of 500,000 Rand as soon as you can. So if you can, for example, only save 2,000 Rand a year, then it's fine. But it's almost having that constant goal for the medium to long term and saying everything that I can save in my tax-free savings account should go there.
Yeah, because it is again being intentional. Why do I want to do this? I don't just throw money into there because it's fun. It's because I want to reach this limit, and I've listened to the podcast and I've watched the videos. What is the power of that compounding tax-free growth? And then so medium terms up to about 5 years, I'd say, and then 5 to 7. After that, 7+ years is long term. So this is now your son's tertiary education. We know that he wants to potentially go to university, a 4-year degree. So now we need to look at what does that cost. Currently in today's money, we need to take inflation into account, education inflation, eduflation, we call it, which is inflation plus 4%. So if we say inflation is 5%, education inflation is 9%. So we do a calculation, and it's scary numbers. If you think about like a standard bachelor's degree, if your son is born today and we save until he's 18, we're looking at putting about 2,000 Rand a month away to just provide for that, just how expensive education becomes. But again, we've quantified it, now we know, okay, I need to put down 2,000 a month. It's tight in the budget, so I either have to work more or I have to sacrifice somewhere else. So that's a good example. And also obviously retirement. We all understand that retirement is important. If you're young, you still have time, don't have to save so much. But you need to start saving as soon as you start working. Otherwise, There's no magic bullet when you get to the end and there's no money.
No. When you wake up when you're 55 and you know you've got 10 years left.
You really have to hustle.
Yes. Then you follow the FIRE movement. And for a decade, you're forced to be a FIRE participant, I guess. So I think that's a good almost summary of how you can set up your financial objectives. But I think there's also your financial objectives can help you to overcome some challenges, right, Peter?
Yeah, so obviously when we put everything on paper, it looks great and we've got a strategy and we're now motivated. It will be great. I'm going to run the comrades and tomorrow it rains and I have to wake up and it's raining and it's dark and it's cold and the wind is blowing and I'm like, it's a Saturday. I should be sleeping in. No, you get up. So there's always going to be curveballs in life that's going to try and derail you. It's very difficult achieving actual goals if you take anything, fitness, finance, spiritual stuff. It takes hard work. So life would try and throw you off your course, and that's why it's important to have that value system that drives you. And oftentimes people say, I'm motivated to do this. I think motivation, while it can help, it is not enough. You need to have discipline. There's a very big difference between motivation and discipline. Motivation is short-term, it's fleeting, it's subjective, it's a feeling-based, how do I feel today? Whereas discipline it's a habit that I've consistently built. It takes a long time, but now I've got discipline. I will continue doing this. So it takes time and it takes consistency to go from motivation to discipline. Once you've reached discipline, then life can throw you curveballs. You'll get back onto the path because you've got the end in mind.
Yeah, I think motivation is a very good momentum starter.
Yeah.
But it's not something that will keep you on track for especially long-term or medium to long-term objectives. Exactly. You'll need to have some discipline.
Yeah, so that kind of wraps up why we put financial goals in place. And this is, the episodes we've done so far is very much more kind of, we haven't talked about the practical stuff too much yet, but it's because we first need to get our mindsets right. Why do we, first understanding how do we think about money? How did we grow up? What does wealth mean to us? Now thinking, okay, we need to start thinking about our goals, write it down, have a plan, being accountable, so that the next steps where we get into the practical side of things, we actually have that compass that will guide us. How are we going to get there? So it is very important, and it's something that I think is good exercise to do every year. and to track your progress, because sometimes you also feel like, geez, man, I don't feel like I'm achieving anything. Maybe you actually are. You just haven't really, because we always only see today and yesterday. We don't see last month. And you may feel like you're not making progress, but if you get record, you actually see like, oh, but listen, last year this time, I was still in so much debt. I'm still in debt today, but I'm not so bad anymore. So there's progress, and that's really motivating to continue going on.
Yeah. So that looking back and also seeing the progress you've made, like you said, is that motivation that will keep you going again and again and again. And it's almost that little celebration that you need to set yourself. So I feel like that's so important to really celebrate the small wins.
Yeah.
Because if you only celebrate the big wins once your house is paid off in 15 years' time, you're going to lose motivation long way before you get there.
Yeah.
So it's celebrating, saying, listen, I've actually done very well. I've paid 100,000 Rand into my bond this year. Let's celebrate that.
Yeah.
Because it is a big win.
Yeah, and treat yourself. If you save for something, also allow yourself to enjoy it. Like say, I've managed to pay 100,000 Rand into my bond. Well, let me go take my wife out for dinner and let's go and spend a lot of money on the dinner because we've actually been disciplined. Also for me, I'm not going to be able to run a Comrades tomorrow, but if I can do it 5K, it feels good because that's maybe the furthest I've run now of 10K. So weekend I did a 20K. I've never done a 20K in my life, but now I've did it. So you kind of start proving to yourself incrementally, okay, so I've achieved this, so let's take a step up. And next thing you know, maybe you'll start running and it won't feel so bad anymore because you got fit and your body got used to it. But it takes time, it takes discipline.
Agreed. And I think financial objectives is probably our first almost topic that you can't just listen to this or watch this and then not do anything. I think action after this is crucially important for you to actually gain the benefit out of our conversation today. So for me, it's almost getting that call of action out and follow these 5 steps, and I think you'll be fine. Firstly, go through the lifestyle audit. So if you are married, just talk to your wife or your husband and say, listen, let's just talk about our life and what we actually want to achieve in our life. And a very good time is actually like normally a December, because that's time where you're not busy with work and your mind is not full of all of those things. So if you've got a few days off, your mind is clear, then talk about actually what is our vision as a family going forward. Then secondly is identify the goals and what is important to you. Like we said again, if you've got financial objectives that will stretch you, you will need to make sacrifice. So be very sure that you've got your values and your beliefs strongly behind your financial objectives. Thirdly is then to set all of your objectives in your life. So firstly, look at your life and then go and look at what is my impact on my finances. Right. So the number 3 is setting your objectives for your entire life. Then 4th is looking at the financial impact of that. And then number 5 is prioritize and focus. I think this is a crucial point as well, because I think if you look at your whole life, there will be a bunch of financial objectives that comes out of that. You probably won't be able to tackle every single one of them straight off the bat. So you need to think, okay, which is my top three, and then go focus on them for the next 6 months. Then do a little audit and saying, okay, where am I today? Can I start focusing on something else? Or is there maybe a different priority by that time? And then focus again on a small amount.
Yeah, taking a big goal, breaking it down into bite pieces that every day, what am I going to do to get to that point at the end of the year? Tracking your actual progress, just as you should track your expenses, tracking your time maybe if you want to take it a step further, and seeing that, am I making progress, and having those small wins that really helps. So now you understand how to set financial goals. So we want to ask you guys, what financial goals do you have for this year? What have you thought about? Maybe go do this exercise and drop it in the comments. Maybe the top 3, you've gone through the exercise. Where is your top 3 main priorities for the year? And let's keep each other accountable. Now I've put it out there. It's a big one. I want you guys to also say, like, listen, this year, by the end of next year, August, I'm going to achieve this. It doesn't have to be like massive news-breaking stuff, but even simple things, so that we put it out there into the universe and we all keep each other accountable and we all celebrate together if we achieve that.
Yes.
Rian, what's your goal?
My goal is to buy my son a new wardrobe every 6 months. Well, that's definitely one of them. But for me, it's really getting to a place where I do every day what I love to do, and it's really in this direction.
Yeah.
So getting to a place where I can wake up every morning and be really, really excited to wake up and do what I want to, or do what I love to do.
Living a purposeful life.
Exactly.
Making an impact. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining in today. My name is Peter. This is Rion. This is the BraaiBucks Podcast. And we are excited to see you in the next episode where we will talk about how to choose the right bank account. So all have a lekker day. Cheers.
Cheers.